Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to another edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are going today be discussing on the situation of the Cameroon Development Corporation, the CDC, a series of programs dedicated to looking at what the CDC is going through and what it would take to save the CDC. We are going this day to be discussing this with panelists who have moved all the way from the southwest regions and others are from Douala here, where we are broadcasting from our studios at Fengudron Bange in Douala, Cameroon's economic capital. Good evening. You're welcome. We are going to be discussing this evening with Billy Bob Andive Lifongo. He is a son of the soil who says he's very passionate with what is happening out there in Fako Division, the CDC to be precise. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Communist.
How is it?
It's a sad day. It's a sad moment for our lives, those of us who are born and bred Fako children. I'm 100% Bakuri man, and I feel concerned about what is happening because I call it a psychological carnage. What is happening in Fako Division? I think it's high time we stopped it.
Yes, but we should also understand that the CDC is what we would also describe as something that belongs to Cameroon. It is something that is so dear to the entire nation.
Let me tell you something. Before being a citizen, you are your mother's daughter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also in the program with us is Barrister Iban Toko, who is also in here with us all the way from the southwest region. We're glad to have you with us, Barrister.
Thank you very much. I'm Barrister Iban Toko Justice. I'm a member of the Cameroon Bar Association.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the Cameroon Bar Council. I'm head of Justice Law Firm. I was born in Victoria, and I'm very passionate about what is happening to CDC. I think I'm here to throw my own insight of what is happening to that.
Okay.
Darling corporation.
Okay. Also with us is Mr. Ikanga Kitabe. He is a political analyst and a research fellow out there at the University of Buea. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you. I'm actually a political economist, research fellow, with special interest in resource control struggles and corporate governance matters. Thank you.
How is Buea today?
Oh, nice. We left Buea okay. The traffic jam. It's like more cars are coming to Buea than before. So it's unusual. It was unusual.
We're glad to know that. Also with us is Charles Embola, also very, very involved in political analysis on different media platforms. Also a prince in the land of Fako. We're glad to have you, Charles Embola, all the way from Buea.
Thank you, Leonard. It's a pleasure to be with you guys here this evening, and hopefully we shall be looking at CDC critically and saying the facts, calling the figures, and without fear. We should be able to tell the masses what needs to be done to redress the dwindling atmosphere at CDC.
Also with us is Dr. Ako John Ako. He is a political analyst and an educationist lecturing with one of the university outfits out here in Douala. Glad to have you once again.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. And once ever issues affecting Cameroon are called upon, some of us are always available to talk about it, even though freedom of expression in Cameroon does not have any implication or consequences to government decisions. And I believe very strongly, as once taught within the context of human rights, we were told that when people speak and nothing changes, then there was no need for the right to have been granted by the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights and Freedom. We as Cameroonians, I believe it is not the first time, maybe when we get into details of it, I would just like to thank enormously the initiative of My Media Prime TV for always being by the side of Cameroonians and speaking burning issues on Cameroon.
Okay, we are going to kickstart this program with what is happening out there in Limbe, Moliwe, precisely with the felling of trees. We are talking about the CDC that is going down the drain, yet its lands and properties are consistently being destroyed even as we speak today. Let's take a listen and watch to this video sent to us from Limbe today. Okay, seemingly that video is not yet ready. Let me know when it is ready. How do we understand that even as things are dire for the CDC, we still find the lands still being taken away either by natives or corporations?
Okay, Mr. Leonard, you see, people always like to test the waters. And test the devil. But what I know is that it's not always good to test the devil, because what some individuals are doing, some I'll call them unscrupulous individuals are doing, some of them FACO elites, some of them FACO chiefs, some of them government officials, what they are doing, I think they are testing the waters by trying to test the how far of the FACO man. Because the FACO man has always been that man who is very, calm, welcoming. But they should not take people's leniency for granted, because when FACO people start roaring, it's going to be very difficult to tell them to keep quiet. Because I can't imagine that things are happening and then today, yesterday started since yesterday, that they have been felling down young palms that are almost ready for production, and nobody seems to be saying anything. Some few people, because this thing it doesn't belong to some few people. But today we realize that some few people now are saying, okay, they have orders from Yaoundé, some have this from here. Yaoundé does not own that land. That land does not belong to some particular people in Yaoundé. It belongs to the FACO man and to the government of Cameroon. That is how it is. It's our legacy. It's our heritage. If they want, they should go and create, some of them should go and create theirs in their own villages. I'm saying this without, I don't know how I can put it, but it is our thing. So charity should begin at home. So I think what they are doing, like you rightly said, somebody should stop this madness, but I think they're just testing the waters. They have been testing it, and I think very soon, the frog never knew there were two types of water until it jumped to water that was hot. And I think very soon some people will jump into that hot water and they will know how that water can burn them. Yes.
Okay. Doctor, I will start by asking you, has the CDC been betrayed by those who are supposed to protect it? Barrister. No, this is for you. Yes.
As I speak, yes. It's an open secret that CDC is under attack. The Cameroon Development Corporation is under attack. Under attack from all the angles, from the north, from the south, from the east, and from the west. If you go to the FACO division now, around Dongo and Tiko, the individuals, they call themselves chiefs and notables, felling down CDC crops. If you go to Mile 4, the chief of Sase is felling down CDC palms. Palms that were planted in 2011. Yesterday and today, the chief of Mile 4 has been felling down palms. Palms planted in 2011 were still in 2020. Go to Batoke. Go to Libola. Go to Idi now. CDC is under attack. And that attack is coming from the administrators and the chiefs of the division. We cannot sit and fold our arms and watch them dismantle CDC in our own eyes. Something must be done. Something must be done. I think the government should wake up from slumber, protect the corporation that has given life to so many people. I was born in Victoria in the second half of the 60s, and I saw how families grew up in that town. I saw how people depend on CDC. How come today everybody is turning around, turning their back on CDC? We still have those families there. We still have people who depend on CDC. Salaries are not paid. CDC workers move around Limbe, asking for peanuts from friends, from colleagues, from brothers, from sisters. That should not happen. When the mainstay of the corporation is there, being dismantled by the people who are supposed to protect it. And I talk about the administration was supposed to protect it, and the chiefs were the custodians of the tradition of that area. If you do not protect CDC, what else are you doing there? It's high time people sit up. It's high time the administration sit up and the chiefs also sit up.
Yes, Mr. Kangaki, how do we explain what the CDC is going through, given its capital position or importance to Cameroon's economy?
Yeah, it's quite simple. The problems of CDC can be traced within the contemporary period back to the issue of the land surrenders. Why and how the government initiated such a policy is not my worry here. But it's beginning to be clear that the policy is counterproductive in terms of what it intended to address. You will recall that the struggle of Bakuri people for control of their ancestral land rights has been an ongoing struggle for a very long time.
Yeah.
You also recall that at the inception of CDC, Bakuri people created the Bakuri Lands Committee to address this very issue in 1946. Now, Bakuri people wrote to the colonial government several times, and even to the United Nations, that whatever is happening to CDC must be within the context of recognition of the rights of the indigenous people of Bakuri to their ancestral lands. So the problem which CDC is suffering today is as a result of the fact that the land rights of the Bakuri people have never been recognized. But in the course of time, the government having been pushed to the wall by the act of Bakuri people taking the government to the African Human Rights Court in Banjul in 2002, sort of perhaps conditioned the government to bring up a policy of appeasement by declaring land surrender. But I will tell you that this policy was not a policy conceived with the endorsement of Bakuri people. And one other thing I want to make clear is that the issue of land rights in Bakuri land have never been in question. The law of Cameroon recognizes that Bakuri lands are private property. Legal minds like him will go into that. I don't want to go into that. But from 2003, when there was an upsurge in land surrender as a result of the envisaged privatization of CDC, which came about as a result of Decree number 125/94 that listed CDC as one of those companies to be privatized, the issue of land rights of Bakuri people have gained some prominence. You recall that the BLCC has been at the front burner of this issue. Now, coming back to what I said earlier, instead of attacking the issue head on by resolving this problem, the government opted for a land surrender whose purpose and intent up to today, Cameroonians do not know. So the problem you are seeing in CDC today, where people are trying to grab chunks of estates of CDC in the name of land surrender to the citizens, is at the base of what we are seeing today.
Okay, Charles Mbola, who is supposed to protect the CDC and is not doing the job?
Leonard, it's unfortunate. Honestly, it's really, really unfortunate. I've been watching the unfolding of events, and I begin to wonder what the Bakuri man stands to gain if CDC is eclipsed by the so-called developmental projects that the chiefs usually write in their big book that they forward to the ministry in Yaoundé, for land surrender. We are not seeing the economic value, the importance of this land surrender, because the indigenous people, first of all, do not benefit from it. It goes without saying that some villages who have benefited from this land surrender have actually had their indigenous people going against their chiefs. This is because the chiefs either do this for their own interest. They sell this land and do not actually develop these villages. You realize an area like Moliwe, we're talking about Moliwe, it's in a sorry state, because when you drive towards Moliwe going to Mile 4, I remember when those palms were planted, and I remember I saw them growing. I wondered the very first day I saw caterpillars bringing down these palm trees, and the question came into mind: why must we surrender these lands?
You go to Great Support, for instance. Somebody from Great Support is applying for land surrender in Mile 4. How is that possible? What's the essence of land surrender? Other villages created from nowhere, villages that have never existed, and all of a sudden you begin to see them gaining land from CDC. And they do this in complicity. Take my word for it. I can defend this anywhere. They do this in complicity with some authorities or officials of the Cameroon Development Corporations, because there is no way a piece of land can be ceded without the authorities of CDC being aware of it. So I think that the traditional rulers are not playing their role. They are killing us. They are killing our cultural heritage. The CDC, like my late grandfather, may he so rest in peace, Daniel Mbula, used to tell us in the house that CDC is our pride. He worked in CDC for over 30 years. He told us CDC was our pride, that we should never let CDC go. But what we are facing right now, apart from the socio-political crisis that is having its own toll on the activities of CDC, we shouldn't be giving out CDC land when we are in such a farce.
Okay, many persons are saying that the CDC actually is in 6 states. Why do we have the impression that the threat that is posed to the CDC does not actually worry many quarters?
Yeah, right, it does. It does. The fact is that being in a country like the one in which we find ourselves now, even I feel so ashamed to be a Cameroonian. I feel so pitiful for the fact that Cameroonians are simply showing a common tendency that we have always decried, that an average Cameroonian is self-centered, egoistic, and at times want to acquire everything for himself, and failing to know that the property they met, some of them were not even born when this organization was created. Yes, we haven't refused. The government has made a lot of concessions to these very chiefs. I mean, officially. In fact, there is a text stipulating that when the villages and the towns keep on expanding, CDC knows how many meters or kilometers it should stay from the home settlement of villagers or the townships. And I believe that this is just a common rule that was supposed to guide Cameroonians, and not people forcing, this is my land, this is not my land, and this one belongs to which village or the other. Added to it again, I equally see a group of people that are lazy, weak, and so confident with what they left them in the name of land. We have gone to places without land. We have been to other areas, there are no lands, and these places are doing well. Some people are living on mountains, and in fact, if you go to the grass field, you can imagine very well, people are making it very big, not necessarily because of land that was given to them by the ancestors. And a lot of those lands which we find them, I equally think that the people within the Bakweri land who always feel that a lot of people have come to seize land from them, they are making an error, because CDC has brought more of fortune to this area. There is no area along the southwest region that is as developed and totally congested like the Fako area, and this not only for anything, it's because of the tenure of the CDC. And remember, it is not by us that the CDC is the second employer of Cameroon after the state. After the state of Cameroon, just for this purpose, Iboya, Limbe, Tiko, Niyuka are flourishing. They are not flourishing because they were or having something extraordinary, the presence of foreigners, and may call strangers or visitors in this particular area, has given the Fako people the rich of what they are enjoying today. But one thing we need to know is that in every advanced economy, in every nation, when we think of growing, some traditional values must be watered down so that development can follow. Because without development, the new may feel that the area which you have developed or the land you have given out was your own right. I can tell you that if we talk of dollar in 1884 and we're talking of dollar in the year 2000, dollar people too will find the right.
What are you saying in effect?
Yeah, in essence, I'm saying that the people within the Fako area should know equally that as the development keeps on coming towards them, there is a need, there is that volition for them to secede some of those traditional rights for the sake of that development.
Okay, people are taking up
and I will tell you, it's not only about the chiefs, because the administrative officials of that area too. And when we go to the DOs, the governors, and other secretary generals or whatsoever, the elite, the civilian elite, a lot of people have land titles. What will this land serve them, even after they will not be there?
So what are you saying?
what I'm saying here that the CDC problem, we might be looking at it in a very minute scale, but that if we look at the problem, we should equally look at the benefits, and that everybody, if only we are people belonging to a nation, that land is meant to serve the interests of all, not just the interests of some individuals.
Okay, so let us go to Moliwe and have a look and listen to what is currently going on there.
Estate 2019 before after Christmas. What I talk is on New Year Day, on the 1st of New Year. On the second New Year, 11 o'clock. I'm about to boy a group of boys and I'm about to collars stick. If all man for Sunday come, put them for center. Start the say as we walk. They will give a message. Muhanam for CDC. So they start for beating all man, beeping mommy, papa picking for son, they come for center. So they beat all man.
Jobs from us, the rate of unemployment, if we don't increase in Cameroon, it is not good. The first of all, the time when they do the things, it not correct.
Who's on a big man they may express his grievances? Mola, come.
Really, while we are here, we're walking at Tiko today. On our way back, we have also discovered that the people are still the government is still there, issuing out our land to the natives. We don't understand what is going on. If they fell all the palm, all our lands, which employment? So what the government should think, they should halt the rate at which they are felling our crops. They should halt. Yeah.
Okay, that actually took place today out there at Moliwe. Billy, okay, yes. Barrister, you want to react to that?
I wanted to react to what I just saw. Gentlemen, this is criminal. This is really criminal. I would say the administration and the chiefs should leave CDC alone. Leave CDC to function. With this kind of act and attitude, they are virtually burying CDC. They are holding the key to the mortuary of that corporation. It should stop and stop immediately. I will not call it land surrender or ceding of land. This is what we call grabbing of land from the corporation. It cannot be accepted. It is inadmissible. It is high time truth be spoken and told the government and the chiefs. You cannot watch people whose livelihood depends on the corporation seeing the corporation been thrown. I mean, it hurts. It hurts. Look at people who depend on the corporation. They are standing there holding placards to say, what is happening to us? Helpless. Nobody is there to assist. Nobody has come out to speak. We expect the administration to say, gentlemen, those who are cutting down the palms, stop right there. Come on, let's talk. The chiefs, stop right there. People feel the pain. You're the custodians of your people, of the natives of that area. Stop and talk to your people. If you need land, there's vast land far off CDC corporation crops. If you look at where they're felling these palms, behind there's wasteland. Much of wasteland. Why can't they not go there? And if you look at what we have, the case we have in court. Sorry, I have to divert a little bit. The first part of the land that was being infiltrated and grabbed from CDC. They are holding out that they intend to build a water catchment. Water catchment for who? Are we building for building's sake? It must be for the people. Are the people asking for water catchment? Are they asking for water treatment plant? They are not. It is one purpose. It is being told that the land that was ceded or grabbed, the first portion, was leased out to 2 companies. But it is an open secret now that lease has moved over and metamorphosized over into a land certificate. How can they lease land to a company for 30 years? The lease turns over into a land certificate. Land certificate is permanent. It's no longer a lease.
Yeah.
It means the government, they know what they are doing. There's somebody in the high places in Yaoundé who's playing the tricks. And it is high time, truth be spoken, and things should turn around. Leave CDC alone. There's enough land for people to exploit.
Leave CDC alone, Billy Bob. How do we measure the impacts of the disappearance of the CDC? Do people really sit down and understand that many persons may go jobless as they are already?
Well, Mr. Kumlena, when we talk about measuring the impact is there. I'm a CDC boy. I started primary school in Miselele. My father used to work for CDC, Miselele Rubber Estate. When you take these lands, we move from there, look at the Moya area that used to be vibrant with CDC. All over where we have all of this newly out there, Central Market, all of these places used to have but bananas. Now, all of these places, they were about, let me see, we had 2 camps there, the Lisoka camp and the Muliko camp. These camps are no longer there. Okay, we accept, we agreed. Okay, it's because of we want to advance the town. It want to embellish the town. We agree to some certain extent that we want to do this. But when it comes now where, like Barrister or Yatim Barrister said, or Molembola said that you are giving somebody a land, somebody is in Muliwe, you are giving him land in Boya for village extension. It doesn't make any sense. Because if you look at those lands, all of those places, the chiefs themselves, late Chief Molinge, had problems with Chief Njombe of Wokaka. Because Chief Njombe is right in Wokaka, back that those of us who are Boya, who know where Wokaka is found, and he was given the new layout inside Muya. And then what do? Chief Molinge was asking, now that this land was given to Wokaka and it's inside Muya, who is going to administer these people? Is it me, Chief Molinge, or the chief of Wokaka? How did they get water? The water that was built from Butingi village that's coming to Muya was from Muya people, and not for those that Chief Njombe brought. So the impact is there. Most of this, I grew up in the heart of CDC. Most of my friends are CDC children because I grew up in the camps, like others. Those houses are no longer there. People have gone back to, they are begging, like one person said here that they are begging for peanuts in town because those estates are no longer existing. So the impact is there. CDC we don't want to have God payday in CDC. Payday, there is a name, payday. Payday in CDC used to be like, it's more than Christmas Day in some places. These things are no longer there. So many people, their livelihoods can no longer, people can no longer feed themselves. Families can no longer, children can no longer go to school because most of these children now they leave CDC camps and they come to town. They are the ones hawking in Douala. If you look, well, they are ones hawking in Douala. At times I buy things from these hawkers, not because I want to buy, I just feel myself, I used to be a CDC boy yesterday. So the impact is very, very clear. And I think it's high time somebody sits in Yaoundé, because like you were saying, like you said, somebody in Yaoundé, everything about Cameroon is Yaoundé. sits in Yaoundé and say no to this carnage that is going on in our land. Because, for example, I have brothers and sisters who work in CDC for about since the crisis started. They have not been paid. They are not paying them. They go for months. Now they have become our burdens. Those of us who used to beg from them, now they now beg from us. It is madness what is happening. So the impact is very, very huge. Because parents can no longer send their children to school. They don't have where to go. They don't have where to sleep. Yes, some came from the grass field, but they've been in Boya for more than 50 years.
Absolutely.
And they have been in Boya for more than 50, 60 years.
Right.
Some don't even know the road back to their villages because they felt they belong to this place.
That brings me to my next question. When we talk about Cameroon, we talk about a country that holds so strong to this notion of national integration and national unity. And CDC played that key role of bringing together persons from the far north, from the south, almost everybody. And seemingly we are jeopardizing that.
I think so. The problem of CDC is really pathetic.
It's a big one.
When you look at statistics, like Doctor said, biggest employer after the state of Cameroon, it ought to be on top of the government's priority in terms of economic revitalization. But what do we notice today? CDC has been left to rot away because some people want to aggrandize themselves by acquiring lands and the rest. The trouble with CDC, the government knows. The owner of CDC is the government of Cameroon. The same owner of CDC is the one that has brought a policy for land distribution. So, like my brother said, this issue should be an issue that every Cameroonian should be interested in. Queuing from what he said, there are great men ruling Cameroon. Most of them stayed in the CDC camps. Go to Tico Water Tank and all those things. That is true. But the most interesting thing about us Cameroonians is that these very people who trace their roots of success to CDC camps are in fact the people presiding over the surgery that will lead to the permanent death of CDC. So what we are saying here, or what I'm trying to say, is that all social forces of progress must take it as a duty to call on government to revisit its land surrender policy, because that is what they are hiding behind. But like my brother said, why can't the government even consider creating satellite towns? Must you create layouts inside CDC plantations? So the question is open. But you know that there's a particular group of people benefiting from this. A few years ago, I did some work on Bakuriland problems, land decision in Cameroon, and I discovered that the chain of corruption in land surrender is so massive and so complex a web that to decode it is very, very difficult. What my brother said is what I stumbled on. That, for instance, somebody will apply for land surrender in two different villages. You see his identity card in village A and see his identity card in village B. Does it mean that he is an indigene of those two villages? Answer is no. But how do these things pass? Because there's a complex web of corruption. So what we are seeing here is massive corruption in land surrender that is manifesting itself by way of these arbitrary actions that you see people don't obey court orders. And that talks a lot again about our judiciary, which I don't want to go into. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening to you, Ntimbia, and to you, Mola Gomez the second, Usman Mbela. Good evening to you, Paul Tabugo, and to you, Sama Abamogwa. You say, Leo, the premise of land ceding is genuine. Unfortunately, it is being exploited mischievously. The cacophony that characterizes the exercise is the problem. Okay, let me take one or two messages and we move on with the program. Hans Munono, writing from Boyatown, says, Prime, thank you for the awareness you are giving on the CDC land raid. Please, this carnage of raping Faku land should stop. What is land surrender? Why don't they surrender lands in the south, east, and north? Only Faku, the land of milk and honey. Good evening to you, Hans. Atemken Peter writes, we are dealing with a government which does not dialogue with anybody. The land grab is meant to impoverish the people and turn them into beggars so as to colonize and assimilate them. The real criminals are in Yaoundé. Okay, good evening to you, Atem King Peter. And this one reads, good evening to everyone in the studio. Good job you are doing. The only way to rescue the CDC is to stop giving lands to chiefs who will later sell in complicity with the SDOs. We say no to land surrender. Caller Rene is writing from Kumba. Charles Mbola, somebody just writes that where are the elites? What is happening that this is happening with impunity, like what we just saw that is almost my fault at the entrance to Lime. Why is nobody saying that they should stop?
This is not happening without the complicity of the elites.
Okay.
You know, it's practically impossible. I must say that within the southwest region, I think in Fako, in the Bakweri area, we have some of the most influential elites of this country, Cameroon. And they go through these roads on a daily basis and they see what is happening. For instance, the case in Moliwe is so glaring and frightening, even to the child who is in primary school around the Moliwe area, because they who used to go into those palms and play and come out with the kennel and, you know, do things in that forest, in that jungle, will never have the privilege to have even the green environment we are looking for, because CDC does not only provide the fruits that we use for commercial purposes, but it is a green environment area that CDC provides for us in that area. We are already destroying this without necessarily planting trees, for instance. Somebody is going to tell me that there is a plan to extend the CDC plantations in other parts of Cameroon, maybe in other parts of the southwest, to be more precise. Remember, we have the Iluani area, Manfe. We have, it's true, we have those areas. But then, when you look at the context and the timing of this land grabbing happening within Fako, I must be very precise, within Fako, I say it's inopportune. We shouldn't be getting into all this right now. It should be on a halt. Yes, there is an economic advantage that comes along with this. But when you go about the nature by which this land is distributed, the way the land is sold unscrupulously, you realize that there is nothing that benefits us. Doctor, I will differ with you when you say some cultural aspects should be watered down. I don't think so. You can't do that in the Northwest, irrespective of the amount of development you bring into that part of the country. Our cultural heritage remains our cultural heritage. If we want to sell land for the purpose of development, maybe we reallocate other areas for our cultural values to be maintained. Because you have most of these elites now in Yaoundé who know practically nothing about our culture. I must confess, they know nothing about our culture. And so when the land is sold, the man who stays in Wotutu, who is a typical villager, will see the disadvantage. But you stay in Yaoundé, you don't feel it. You've been living in Yaoundé for almost 20, 30, 40 years. You don't have that touch with reality, the customary realities of the people. So the elites in Yaoundé are working in complicity with the deals, with the traditional rulers, and some elites, some indigenous people who are on the ground, because there is no way you can do that without the complicity of the man who is on the ground. There is always that level of collaboration that must take place. So the elites, the Fako elites, the elites of the southwest, where we have CDC plantations extended to, I think they are all in complicity with this carnage. Call it cacophony, call it land grabbing, call it stealing. Whichever we want to look at it, but it is so disadvantageous to us. Yes, development comes with ceding of land, but how do we manage the ceding of land is the major problem. Okay. There is no way we are benefiting
How
from
do we manage this? Greetings to the panelists, especially Barrister Ntoko. I'm in love with the topic of the day, Mr. Kum. It is Barrister Bolinji writing. Good evening to you. And for Ferdinand writing from Douala says Dr. Ako should precise his take again on the land surrender, please. Okay, I'm sure he's going to come back on that. Good evening, panelists. This is a very interesting topic, which I appreciate all the panelists for their contributions. I strongly suggest that the CDC land surrender issue should be well looked into by the government. I go with Mr. Mbola all the Fako chiefs use the lands to enrich themselves and their family. The government approved those applications on letters to surrender those lands so that indigenous people and their generations can develop it, but it's not like that. The government should send the government should send secret Konak agents to investigate how the chiefs have satisfied their indigenous people. Okay, I'm sure missions have been done already. Pinda Dale, good evening to you, Pinda Dale. Barrister, this was the CDC is on its knees due to the government. Their evil intention is to take the headquarters of CDC to Yaoundé so that it will be fully francophonized and Anglophones will be the sole laborers till thy kingdom come. God, where are you? Tabot Machiavelli is writing from Yaoundé. Somebody is writing that for the first time he disagrees with you, Dr. Ako, John Ako. But the question is, you are talking about development, but in whose interest? Because these lands are seemingly benefiting those who are selling the lands.
Those who are selling the land, not those who are developing the land. And if you believe sincerely, because I stand to be one of those Cameroonians that feel that we need to call a spade a spade.
Okay.
We are not arguing that there was no need for development of these areas. One, if there is a need for development, then the indigenous should be ready to sacrifice part of their personal enjoyment for a common good. Two, the way and the manner in which it is done, it is not in the right order of the will of the people. When you look at those chiefs standing, you realize that it is just for personal enrichment, which we cannot still dispute it. When you look at it, I'm telling you, of his blessed memory, Mayor Patrice Kamer had a lot of problem with his predecessors. He's one of those individuals that sold a lot of land in Buea than any other person. We are just saying this. But if you get to it, are the indigents to whom this land was surrendered, are they the ones selling the land? Are they the ones owning those lands now? Because if land is given to villagers, we are not giving to people who are coming from somewhere. The land was to be given to villagers. And we need the villagers to be land reliant enough. No. Are they the people having the lands? No, I don't want us to get into detail. When you look at the whole administrative block equally involved in the land issue, I'm telling you what just happened today. If it was that Amber Boys were the one doing that, I believe we have received a response from the governor. And by this evening, the governor will have been out on TV to tell you, but this is more than a criminal offense. It is more than capital murder. What we just saw here. And up to now, no statement from the administrative authority, which will equally give us an impression that it is just a game of benefit in the Southwest and may be in Fako that everybody is trying to enrich his pocket within the land surrender case.
By the expense of, at the expense of the CDC, because...
Exactly, that is our crime. If we need CDC to stay alive, there is a need, like we said, why not create new satellite towns? Why not? Government has the authority over land. We can take forests even from Kmer, Okuma, city people out there. Remember some time ago we cried about Yaoundé. But Yaoundé is getting completely dweller. That we can create new quarters outskirts so that people can move out. Yeah. Why not be the same case? Why is the problem with the CDC? Because this CDC, which employs more than 24,000 young Cameroonians, need to be protected than a single land to an individual that serves only his family interests. A common good is better than individual good. We must accept that. Except we are not there, but I believe that strongly the issue of land surrender should stop. That the government sees into it that these who are asking for land should be given land somewhere, out of even the Fako area. That would be even beneficial to them.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, I wanted to add, we cannot cut your throat to solve nose bleeding.
Okay.
It's impossible. We cannot talk about development by destroying CDC. If you want to develop the area, there's vast land all over Fako. Huge vast land, virgin, for the chiefs to exploit. But as lazy as they are, they just want to look just directly in front of their toes. And what happens? By looking in front of their toes, they are destroying the crops that were planted since 1947. They have not even attempted to plant one palm. So that they know how difficult it is to destroy what you put on the ground. So I think it's high time people start looking at other areas. And I insist, leave CDC alone. There are other things that people can do. There are other areas that can be exploited. Why only CDC?
Yeah, but you say leave CDC alone. You are talking, okay.
Yeah, there's something I wanted to bring. Let us not forget that the chiefs are auxiliaries of administration. And that policy making in Cameroon is top bottom. The question is, who brought about this land surrender policy as a solution to Bakuri people's cries? Because, if you don't really know the history of something, you cannot track its later day manifestations. This thing is squarely within the competence of the state. Bureaucrats are the people who make policy in Cameroon, and we know that. Remember I said here, when I started, that this land surrender thing did not receive the endorsement of the stakeholders. When I talk of stakeholders, you had to consult the Bakuri people. At the time that this thing started happening in 2003 massively, there was an organized body of Bakuri people called Bakuri Lands Claims Committee. But government told it otherwise. And now let me tell you something. 57 of 70 chiefs in Bakuri land at that time endorsed BLCC. In an open meeting in Boya, Professor Ndive Kafele was appointed as consul for BLCC. So, we should not be beating about the bush. The person who developed this policy and outlined its implementation and the chain of command in its implementation is the state of Cameroon. And here we are appealing to the state to see that this policy has become counterproductive. So we are not even talking about managing land surrender. We are talking about mismanaging land surrender. Okay?
Yes. Mr. Leo, you see, I will always say I've been at the center of most of these happenings in the Bakuri land, because I grew up in an area where a lot of issues concerning land. I'm a Muya boy. Because people are talking about 2003. The first surrender in Muya came out in 1995. Yes. 1995.
Applied for in 76 by Samuel Jaco Musenja.
So now it happened in 1996 with the coming of Chief Mulinge, who was enthroned in 1994, and it happened the way it happened. Now, you cannot imagine a village where 17 hectares of land at that time was given, and then just 2 hectares of the land was being shared amongst the villagers. Those are facts. Those are facts. At that time, my grandfather was still alive. And that was where, because one of the villages who have benefited more of this land issue in the Boya area is Moya. People don't know. But what are the villagers, what do they have to show for it? Nothing. Because somebody goes to Yaoundé, and there's something that someone said here, that the process in having this, how do you call it, seeded letter or what, land grabbing or stealing, it's so cumbersome. Those who created this thing, they knew what they were doing. Exactly. To have a complete land certificate for a land that is being transferred from the state, from CDC to a village, warrants a lot of money. And that's why those of us who are from Boya will tell that they have what they call sponsors. You know about these things. They will go and meet a Bamileki man.
I was about to interject.
Yeah, so if you go and meet a Bamileki man, I'm just saying this, Mr. Leo, he funds the project. Yep. Moyena, as a friend will say, okay, we're going to have 30 hectares of land. When you sponsor this project, okay, we give you 5 hectares at the end of the day. Yeah? 5 hectares for 500 meter square gives you 1 hectare, about 20 to 25 plots of land. Correct. That's the measurement. Correct. And then when you give somebody, now the deal of Boya, who has to sign somewhere, needs his own share. The SDO for FACO who has to sign somewhere, this is his own share. And that is how it's a chain. Now, you have these people of how do we call them, lands and surveys. There's a lady who's on run today, you know, Madame Florence, everybody knows it. I'm calling her name here, everybody knows who has, like, she's everywhere. People are looking for her. She's out of the country, for the register of land, because she was that person. If you don't give her own, she will not sign. So all of this is a chain, and then you realize that at the end of the day, you are spending 25 to 30 million francs for a local Bakuri chief who doesn't have, who has nothing to write home about. You go and meet this Bamileke man, this foreigner, and then you say, okay, at the end of the day, you come in a village and you realize that somebody who is not of that village, that land is given to the indigenous people. It is stated there. Indigenous people, not to the people of Moya, but to the indigenous people of Moya. And then you give them 30 million, then somebody is coming in a village and owning 6 hectares of land, while an indigenous,
and you begin to wonder,
doesn't have one plot. The one plot. That is it. And how it is difficult like this, and then we sit and fold our arms, like doctor said,
There are people in Yaoundé who know all of this. I'll quote an example. The former Prime Minister of this country, Peter Mafani Mosonge, His Excellency, used to be General Manager of CDC. He left CDC in 1996 when he became Prime Minister. I was sitting at 11 September. Now, he is somebody who that people consider as l'un des hommes les plus proches du président. He is very close to the president. Do you think if Mafani Mosonge decides today that this madness will end, it will not end? We used to have a technical advisor at the presidency, Bakureman, Churchill Umbaman, who has been sent today. You think if these people decide that enough is enough, this carnage will not end? But like somebody said, that it's a complicity. It's a complicity. It's a complicity, and it keeps. It's like a vicious circle. It's like a vicious circle that keeps going around and keeps going around.
Yes, Mbola.
Yes, I was going to say that as we speak right now, there is a body in place being put in place by the Bakwe people called the Fako Land Trust. Yes, and it's an investment group aimed to better manage,
to bail out CDC,
safeguard and preserve Fako ancestral lands from unscrupulous administrators for the development and benefit of the Bakwe people. This structure, this body, is what we intend to propel, because we've realized that going in dispersed ranks to fight this mafia is like these people do the Italian job. It's a very, very, very big.
No, the cabal is big.
The cabal is very, very big. This Fako Land Trust. I was glad the other day when Barrister Ngogi was in the studios. I felt so compelled to call him after the program, because we share the same idea. At least for once, Barrister Ngogi and I share the same idea, the same vision about what CDC is all about. We need to push this idea. I for one, I am not at the forefront. I'm still to get so involved in it, but I've been reading about this, and I think it is an initiative. It is not only for the Bakwe man, it is for the entire southwest region, because CDC is already expanding. What is happening to CDC in Fako may happen to CDC in Kmer, it will happen in Dian, it could happen to any other part of Cameroon where you have CDC's expansion. So we need to begin by, because see, let me tell you what the sincere truth. What we obtain in the nearest future is that you have some of this land that had been ceded already being reclaimed by CDC or the indigenous people, because the procedure used in acquiring this land was so mischievous. That's the truth about it.
Well, I will just stipulate. Okay, you talk about 1 minute. He spoke about reclaiming. He spoke about reclaiming. I want to make this clear. It's a problem in Moya. Those who come from there, they will know. There was a land certificate that was given fraudulently to people, about 25 hectares of land along towards the Boya main market, and then
behind the palace.
Yes, okay. No, not behind the palace, towards the Catholic Church.
Yes,
around that area. Yes, that area. That land was given, I think, in 2011, like that. Problems are not. There's a problem there because the indigents, after the death of the late chief, wrote to the administration. I want to make this clear. Wrote to the administration that we have problems here with Madame Flores, and the land certificate was cancelled. Given back to the community. People already built there.
The chief consultant.
People already built there. Okay, yeah. These are CDC lands that people are using anyhow.
Yes, this day we went to some of the camps around Tico to find out how some CDC workers are struggling to survive without our pay.
Okay, I come up with the management line decided risky. So one day we cash some people that kill what I told them they can come there. Some boy point me say I know one of the boys. Why official so the military they just hold me beat down. Somebody bring the boy down. Oh no, so they say military do for our own safety. I don't say they people. They didn't for order for beating. So I don't feel the management. So I see the man feelings and they fear me.
You see what they fear?
I see military and they fear.
Okay. So now, if you get opportunity for talk for government, what you will tell them for this moment?
I will tell them, they advise the military, they know what to do, but they arrest people.
Thank you.
Mr. Betekon Stephen Asomani, I joined work for CDC for 2007. Yes. By then, all to define. So from 2017, I was transferred from Okonje to Technical Service Department. From then, I take 3 months salary. Now I'm beginning, they transfer me. I never pay Okomba from Okonje. So I can't find for this side. For coming for this side, we can't find house. From now to then, after I take my 3 months salary, I pay some my first side. From now to then, no start. I mean, say, the organization pay, and also say they'll pay. They'll pay for 2018, 2019. They show their account, their account totally. But still they pay the money. From now, from January to today, we are starting issue. January 2020 to today, we are starting for so. No kobo. No, we don't pay one month. We won't pay JYP. From January 2020, we pay JYP. And now the thing school go on. I don't can't say school go on. If we appear, we can't be a novice. We say put them. We appear in the house. Me, I know nothing myself. That's the one thing we appear being novice in the house. They pay me. We expect school. The school in the house. For me, I was saying, okay, from yesterday, from last week to today, we expect pay. But here, no issue. And that's why me, I don't separate me and my mom simply because the crisis. My pay on different side, my mom different side, they are different sides. I don't know. I'm saying from then to then, and I miss my pay.
Last time we told me since 2020,
since 2020, January to 2020, we pay. January from now, I'm saying January to now, Kobo in the past.
Okay, thank you.
As you see, we go on. They will go on when they want money, they can see that. Who goes listen to the game? They carry all money, what a percent. They say no sample by manager. They choose me 6. And choose the other company that food. Say no sample when they show up. When they can't get the keep on the will get sense. Put the things on the wall. The person of prayer, go pull from this. Just stand on the phone. Send a sample of the actor saying, put more shows in the CDC.
So you don't work with CDC for how long? When they receive pay?
Yes, I don't work for 4 years for CDC. I don't want 98, 96.
So they will pay you? They will pay you?
They will pay. Then for the 4 years, we have to start. The price will start. For 4 years.
So just tell me once more.
What would you want to talk? I just repeat what you want to talk because I want the same thing.
So all this while we do the work, you don't receive salary, you take care of your family.
By good grace, not the way you play. One kind 1 year something. You so good. My body don't make us even good.
So what you go to pay the Cameroon government now was management facility.
Okay. And now to issue the worker for selling the Cameroon estate 2019 before after Christmas. When I talk about New Year Day on the 1st of New Year, on the 2nd New Year, 11 o'clock, I'm about to go to group of boys in Cameroun State with all man person they come, put them for center, start the as we work, they will give message, Muhanna.
Okay, those were some of the workers of the CDC expressing what they have been going through and are still going through. We hope that something is done soon as possible by the government to assist the CDC come to their rescue. Dr. Ako, I'll ask you to tell us the core significance of this cooperation to Cameroon's economy.
We cannot undermine it. I believe very strongly when we started not going, Cameroonians would know that one of the issues with the Anglophone crisis, there were two corporations that were picked up in this region, that is the Sonara and CDC. And one of it meaning that after the government, all Anglophones think that one day, if CDC is given to Anglophone to manage, all Southern Cameroonians will gain job into CDC. Because it recruits about 24,000 youths, and which means this is ready employment day in, day out. Not just looking at that, when you look at the extension that the technique CDC has taken now, and I believe one way CDC has already been having feelings that one day backward people will come for their land. The fact that CDC is extended to regions like Mamfe, Kmer, and even Mundemba, it gives already an impression that they want to solve really this issue, but the way in which the chiefs are going through, just the fact that it's an employment opportunity. Anybody that creates employment then solve an economic problem. They imagine the Cameroon government has been 60 years of independence unable to solve an employment problem. So which means if CDC alone, what we have seen, not only because of the land dispute, but the Anglophone crisis too is chopping CDC immensely. The banana sector is totally down and zero. If we need to control with this particular organization, meaning if care is not taken, what happened to the Cameroon Development Bank and many other banks like the marketing board might happen to CDC. We need to be very careful with what we are playing here. And we know how useful CDC is to this region. As I said, if the FACO area is an area that is the way it is, people should know that it's because of the presence of the CDC. One of it which I want to tell, most particularly the people coming out from the FACO as the indigents, there is a need for us to get into sustainable means of making finance or creating business rather than depending on land. Because in some areas, in some places, others who are more successful, we would like to see backward sons and daughters becoming business giants within the next few days in Cameroon, why not in Africa, so that they can create jobs otherwise for future generations of this particular area. We should look at CDC as that symbol that Cameroonians have had, and even not only within Cameroon, but internationally. I will tell you that the products of CDC equally compete within the European Union market and even in some other companies in America. We are not just, a lot of billions are coming into Cameroon because of the presence of CDC in this area. We should forgo our personal egoistic tendency and let CDC have his part. As we have just said here, even right in FACO area, there are certain areas still undeveloped. There are villages without even a farmland, a cocoa plantation or a palm plantation. What are these chiefs doing? A lot of the chiefs still sit back beside their backyard and feel that they can grab land and sell. The importance, I insist, agricultural land still live in places like Russia. There are plantations in Germany. There are plantations in the United States. If they are not suffering from this particular situation, it means that the government had given alternative to settlement, that people are even forced out of those territories. If you go to Latin America, places like Argentina and Brazil, you have no right to claim with Del Monte or any other of such huge international investment which the government knows that secures job for a citizen because of an individual single plot handed out. You go into the new settlement site, get your land there, and carry out your development on a personal note. If we have to protect the CDC, the government of Cameroon too, we don't want to imagine that people knew that they seized an Anglophone crisis, and if there's a time that they are now fighting among themselves, let's see what takes them, because government is capable of changing target. After a lot of schools were taken out of this region, I am afraid that the CDC should not be the next company that will be taken out of this region. That is one of the last legacy for an Anglophone Cameroonian. There is a need for us to preserve CDC, not just for the interest of Cameroon. I said and I insist, even for the interest of the Bakwarians, it remains a legacy for them.
Okay, we also should note that the CDC is not only providing jobs, they are also involved in the provision of they are also in the services. The services are like the domains of health, and health and education and a host of other
roads. Yeah, roads. Yeah, that's true. We do not need to protect only the crops. CDC is multi-dimensional. You have areas concerning health. You have areas. There are so many vast.
Everywhere there is CDC, there's a road.
And so if you touch schools, it is known that the schools right up the mountains there, far the villages off the way, those schools cannot receive your teachers. And CDC pays teachers to teach in those schools off the way.
The paid nurses.
The paid nurses. They go close to the people. They go to the hinterlands to take care of the people.
They even have their own pipe-borne waters.
There's another aspect that I want to bring. I do not know whether it is part of the case.
Yeah,
I think the judiciary also should protect the corporation. If the judiciary were independent, as it is supposed to be, the judiciary by the constitution is a power. The administration is a power. The legislature is a power. But the way we look at it, the judiciary is now an authority controlled by a power. So it is difficult when you have a case like land grabbing and it goes to court. Somebody sitting somewhere in Yaoundé makes just one phone call to the president of the court or the person, the judge entertaining the matter. Before you know it, things turn around. I'll give you an example that we have. We had the case against the chief of Sase. We got an injunction in open court. And there was an action by the chief of Sase against CDC for the cancellation of that injunction. We went to court. 2 minutes after the matter was called, I did not move the court. My colleague on the other side did not move the court. The court said, "Su moto, on his own motion, I'm going to give a ruling." You give a ruling when the parties before the court have not even given their interest, have not given their stake. What is at stake? He said, because I think that it is my right to give a ruling and it's my right to annul the ruling. But that is not justice. Parties must be heard for a ruling to be delivered. That is what we say. The judiciary should also be part of this process. The judiciary should protect individuals, should protect corporations, should protect all of us. But if they cannot protect us, where do we turn to? The socio-political crisis is part of the reason why people run into the bushes. Because there's no protection anywhere. No protection for administration, no protection for the judiciary. Not even the legislature, the representatives who sit there in Yaoundé have not heard a private member bill to question what is happening in my jurisdiction. Or the parliamentarian comes back to his people. What are the problems you have here? You don't do that. They're interested in sleeping in the hotels in Yaoundé, attending the parliament. They have voluminous documents in front of them. They do not even exploit. And they say, because of party policy, I cannot question what my party is projecting. Then who are you representing? If you are a parliamentarian of the people, you are representing the people. As we speak, look at CDC workers going into the farms, holding placards. You cannot continue doing this, cutting down our trees. Where are the parliamentarians? Where are the elites to come and put in as my brothers? Come and sit down. I'm going to take over this fight and correct the errors. The chiefs are very proud about it. They do it with impunity. They do not bother where you come from. Exactly. You come anywhere, they say, no, I have the right to do it. I'm the chief. Are you the chief against your people? Or you are there for your people? That is the million-dollar question.
Mr. Kangaki, now lands are taken away from the CDC, yet we talk about the growth of the giant industrial or agricultural structure that Cameroon can pride itself of. How do we invest and develop such a structure without a land?
That's a big question, a million-dollar question. In fact, it seems to me as if the government of Cameroon is no longer interested in CDC. True. Because if you derive milk from a cow, it behoves you to feed that cow very well. Sure. So that the cow can produce more, keeps producing, and you too keeps enjoying your life. I sometimes wonder why we have a lot of double standards. Why am I saying this? I know very well that there was a problem of fire in Sonara. Are we sure the way they are treating CDC workers is the way Sonara workers are being treated. I'm not so sure. Now, the problem is the government of Cameroon must ask itself questions whether it needs CDC or it doesn't need CDC. Because like he said, decision making in Cameroon, sometimes the government doesn't listen to their citizens. If they were to listen to their citizens, much has been said here that can make the government redefine the direction of CDC. But to answer your question, the answer is no. You cannot expect to have a vibrant, economically giant CDC like some corporations I know in Malaysia that came here to Cameroon and took palm nuts from even this CDC. And Malaysia is now an oil exporting country, and we are sending our researchers to Malaysia to go and study palm oil when they collected these things here. In fact, to digress a little bit, when they took the first palm nuts, they went and tried it, did not work. A biologist told them that the environment that you have here cannot sustain that. They came back and captured insects, carried them in boxes, and took there, groomed the insects and released them for pollination. We should have been at the forefront of oil palm production and many other things. So if government thinks that CDC should die, it should also prepare for social crisis that will follow the death of CDC in terms of employment, in terms of economy, because some of the country look at the statistics of CDC, what they used to give to government. Looks very interesting, but of course this is what the public doesn't know. That sometimes on a monthly basis, CDC used to make returns to the state of Cameroon close to about 4 billion francs a month. Yeah. I think I've read somewhere, I was like, wow.
You're correct.
So the problem is let Cameroon government define its priorities. This is an agro country. We are not industrialized. If we cannot show our strength in agri industries, then where do we show our strength? I agree with you. Okay. The government needs to take a second look at CDC.
Okay, we understand that the CDC pumps an estimated 2.4 billion francs CFA a month as salaries to workers, and we can imagine the what they call the multiplying a payment to contractors who make supplies to the CDC. They are paid to the tune of 1.1 billion francs CFA. And we also understand that there are many persons who engage in other economic activities around the camps.
Small holdings.
Yes, small holdings.
We have people who have stores and a host of others. We understand that not only those who work with the CDC, but many other
persons. There's a real economy.
Yeah, you have persons who have migrated from other parts of the country, and we're basically exposing other products. It's like an exchange. The CDC worker who earns maybe 50,000 francs can spend, say, 5,000 francs on a particular product that the CDC cannot provide. That is how the economic impact was being felt, or is supposed to be felt in these areas where you have the CDC camps. The story is completely different nowadays. And with let me just say this, with the prevailing crisis in the region right now, it's made it very difficult because CDC has expanded quite all right. There are areas where by now we were expecting that harvests would be taking place, but it's not happening. Yet we see young palms being destroyed. We are not really sure when we'll start harvesting what has been planted elsewhere out of FACO division. It is a problem. Therefore, myself, like Mbola, I'm seated in, say, at mile 4 Limbe, where CDC workers are crisscrossing on a daily basis. They will not spend. And when they don't spend, what happens? Everybody goes to what the French would call chômage.
Yeah, the rural economy collapses.
It collapses. Everything dies down.
It does.
And what does that provoke? It provokes anger. In the course of it, you realize there is somehow, in quote, social unrest coming up because people become so disgruntled because they can't feed. A hungry man is an angry man.
Okay, a hungry man is an angry man. The CDC is not only a heritage for the Fako people or the Southwest people or Anglophones. It's also a heritage for Cameroonians because it brings in a lot of foreign exchange to the country. Seemingly, we don't hear a lot from across the nation that is concerned for the CDC.
That is what I just said.
Should the CDC not be a national cry?
That is what I'm here. I said somewhere. I don't want us to get back that the Anglophone crisis was a cause that has been manipulated even by the government to kill the economy of this particular region, thinking that is the benefit for the Anglophones. They have forgotten that CDC is, the very first that sells the image of this country abroad. The products of CDC are sold in the European Union market, like, and they are not written made here. They are not written there that made in Southwest. They are saying made in Cameroon. Sometimes the government was the one even promoting the mark made in Cameroon. So when a company, a multinational corporation, we can put it there, like CDC is going through this torment. Imagine the billions government is putting to survive a small company like Cameco, and we are not seeing results. And then at the same time, CDC is good. I was one of those people that believe that if this nation is being ruled by right-thinking minds, I think for the sake of CDC, the Anglophone crisis was supposed to have been handled at a very early stage. At the area of dialogue, to survive the economic consequences of CDC. I said myself when I moved through the streets of Chico, and I realized that the whole place is now down, that the bananas, nothing is up. I don't know what becomes of the elites, of those who were there. When we talk like somebody like Peter Mafani Musonge, he's taken back to 1996 while he was there, and look at the vegetations and the scenery, the leisure that we find just watching the CDC plantations. You can shed tears for this nation, Cameroon. But if the authorities are doing nothing, I'll not tell you that they can do better, because we have had a system that has shown obscurity in the brain. A lot of people are tired of even thinking, and that they don't even think again. So what they do now is that, like, we have COVID-19. These are the type of forums where Cameroon go to seek budget abroad. So budget is coming. When you see countries coming up because of COVID-19, we have been found 4,000, 40,000 euro or dollars. The government is happy. This is where Cameroon wants to make money. Yes. How sustainable are these sources? How sustainable are we depending on foreign aids to rescue an economy like that of Cameroon? We know very strongly. He mentioned the case of Malaysia, but nobody knew that Cameroon even gave food to China. Before 1950 and 1968, we were sending food to China. Even the Israelites came to Cameroon, they were taking food. Today, where are we? South Korea, that went through a serious war tussle and missile crisis. Where are they today, and where is Cameroon? When we are being ruled by people who in fact, the vision is not to lead a nation but to make their pockets rich. I'm telling you that Cameroonians have money in their private account, money they will never even eat. So killing CDC will be just the next target, is that they will call foreigners to come and own the corporation. Then when they buy again, we will not even know who took what. These are the type of venture that the country Cameroon always get into. So when they go negotiating the same contract, the same people coming to buy, we promise them percentages. If that is the level they want it to go, they are happy. They care not about the common man. Like we said here, when crises of this nature come to our country, the common man suffers. But I have said, if we need to live a better life, live the life that impact change in the life of others, not about you. When you are a leader, learn to lead, not to be served. You serve the nation rather than the nation serving you.
Yeah, it is true. Everybody is talking about the need for towns to expand, but why don't we also look at the touristic aspects, the greenery, the scenery of the beauty of the plantations around the coast? Why don't we also capitalize on that to sell that and think of growing cities away from the plantation sites?
You know, to develop such kind of things, it's up here. You have to think that, for example, we don't...
Imagine driving down to Limbe, the beauty that these plantations are coping.
That's what we are saying, like we talk about the scenery. Yesterday it was different when we used to drive from Douala to Boya to Limbe right up to Kumba. It's either you are seeing a green that's plantation like in bananas, you have rubber, you know, at times when we used to see the rubbers are like they are falling, all of them are weighing on one side. It's a wonderful scenery. Today we don't have them. They have been felled. We have a palm nut plantation that is being felled today in my 4.
But when we have a government that does not think that because those are touristic values, somebody might just travel all the way from France to come and get this view.
I know many persons who come just to get through toilet. The toilet seat. Yeah.
Okay, when we are talking about this, we realize that we don't have that government that thinks towards this kind of direction, because our touristic values are almost inexistent. Have you gone to Bimbia? If you go to Gorée in Senegal and compare Gorée Island in Senegal and compare to Bimbia, yes, and compare to Bimbia, in Gorée they don't lock the gate. I was in Bimbia the last time. I had to send for somebody to go and call the guy who was in Bimbia village to come and open the gate for us to get access into it. So it just tells you that when we don't think, because all what the government of Cameroon thinks is about oil. It's about oil. But these things will get finished someday. Touristic values will never get finished. They told that a country like Mauritius, they don't have oil. All what Mauritius has is tourism. They make a lot of money from tourism. But we have it's as if our tourism ministry is just there for the sake of having that ministry. They don't think about all of this, because CDC is not just the plantations, it's also these touristic attractions. Go to the camps and see. In CDC camps and see wonderful things that have happened in those camps. Those of us who are CDC children, we know all these things. That you know that in some plantations, you realize that when you go in these plantations, we have what we call the locomotives. You go inside those plantations, you still find them there. You still find the old rails, you still find them there. But we have this. I'll have our country. That's why, like Doctor said about CDC and Sonara, they were in the same pot of soup. But the government is bailing out Sonara, and the government is not bailing out CDC. CDC needs about 100 million, and I don't think 100 million. 100 billion. If the government of Cameroon cannot have the direct funds, they should go borrow, because they borrow to do other things. They borrowed money from China, 75 billion, to give us laptops that are now being found in Mokolo, in Moya Market, in all of the markets around that is being sold for 15,000 francs. And we contracted a debt for 75 billion francs just for that nature. They should go look for debts, go to the Gulf, go to these Emirates, go everywhere, look for money to come and bail out CDC. Because CDC must be bailed. Whether you like it or not, CDC must be bailed, because if you don't bail CDC, then I think the problem that, like somebody said, the problem that is going to come if you don't bail out CDC is going to be more than even the Anglophone crisis. Because CDC is an entity that, like you said, it's not about just the Bakuriman, it's not about the Anglophone. We have people, Francophones, working in the CDC. The board of directors, people come from across the nation. If you look at the board of directors of CDC,
there are 12. There's one Anglophone.
Yes, you understand. You have a representative for the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Finance. I know some of them with their names and their faces, because I've met them. And then you just have the board chairman.
And will I come in very briefly?
Yes, I want to talk about the hybrid system.
Okay.
Because there's total confusion and mixture. We have the cultural values of the Anglophone and the culture and values of the Francophone. You talk about touristic sites. Look at what the white man, the Englishman did when they were here and they created the CDC in 1947. You could walk through the farms. You could sit and have good moment in the farms. But because of this hybrid system, where anything goes, you don't know whether we're following the Anglophone culture or the Francophone culture. The total mixture has caused total confusion. And so the greenery areas that we used to have, we do not have it. The example you have is the Botanic Garden. When the British man was around, that us Anglophones, we followed their footsteps. The Botanic Garden was the place where everybody would walk into. Children and the parents would walk in the Botanic Garden and have a good moment.
Have fun, man.
But because of this hybrid system, where you have Francophone administrators in an Anglophone jurisdiction, you want to use civil law and Napoleonic code to solve the common law situation in the Anglophone jurisdiction. That is the problem. If you have the Anglophone section, the Anglophone system should prevail. And people will move according to that system without that confusion. When is the last time we had an Anglophone SDU in Fakou?
Good question.
When is the last time? The SDU comes there with his own mentality. He is a Francophone. He has his own mentality. They live their own style of life. But he is there with Anglophones. Instead of them to learn from them, he's imposing his own style of life. And that is where we say it should be corrected. The day we have a governor who's an Anglophone, an SDO, FACO, Anglophone, and all the DOs there, Anglophones, you will see that things will start working. People start thinking in the same line. That confusion that we used to have will not be there. And nothing will happen to this country. People fear to talk about this federal system. There is nothing wrong to have a federal system. Let the local people administer themselves. Imagine that the local people administer FACO. We look at each other in their eyes. And you ask that, please vote for me as the mayor, or I want to administer this jurisdiction. At the end of your mandate, they look at you. Give us what you have done. If you are not you cannot account for what you've done, you're thrown out. And the next person comes in with a better program. So I think it is the high time we start giving power to the local people. Let power go down to the people. I'm not talking about the chiefs, but the chiefs that we have now, I don't know whether the same chiefs that we had. I'm talking about the chiefs. I don't want to give any exception. The chiefs that we have, I don't know whether it's the same chiefs that we have. In those days, I used to hear of Chief Endeli. I used to hear of Chief Bokete. Bokete is still alive. Manga Williams. Chief Ntoko, I cannot leave him out. You notice that the tradition, the values, and the culture of the people were maintained. The people had a way of living. There was no confusion. With this confusion now, we are heading to total doom.
Okay, we're heading to total doom. Imbola, you had something to add. But now, if care is not taken, Cameroon may start importing bananas and oil and the host of others.
Already importing from Gabon oil.
Yes, but how do we find ourselves in a situation that we can readily prevent or avoid?
Okay, you see, the most difficult thing about discussing Cameroon is that Cameroon is a system that has refused to systematize. People say impossible never in Cameroon. Whatever they mean by that. The problem is that we have a crisis of confidence because the government program is not very clear. In those days, we used to have these 5-year development plans that would be vulgarized around the country. Yes, 3 years. People will even know that.
Green Revolution.
See, people will know that this is the direction the state is taking for the next 2 or 3 years. My brother, I can tell you that the problem we have now is that government policies fly from a 2D, like helicopters. As the tides change in the sea, so do their policies change. So the problem is this. They have made some good efforts trying to incorporate ideas from GCAM. Government cannot do it alone. Consultation with other stakeholders, like he is talking about the legal system. Who will come and invest in Cameroon if he knows the kind of things that we are talking? And they know. So we have deficient institutional structures that cannot sustain a modern economy because of the crisis that we know, institutional crisis, the crisis that you talk of, the lack of separation between the 3 arms of government. Because when you are coming to invest, you want to be sure that your investments will be protected. We have had cases in this country. Let me go back to even the sale of the tea sector of CDC, because we are discussing CDC. If you go back to memory lane, you will ask yourself whether, as learned as you are, you did understand the privatization of tea sector. If you say you understood it, then you must be a very great guy. One point they told us that a South African company, Bourbon Phoenix.
Yes.
At one time, Bourbon Phoenix disappeared in thin air. Whoever came, I don't know. So what I'm trying to say is this, even among ourselves, to be honest, let me ask you a question. If CDC is having problems, okay, can Cameroonians themselves buy CDC? What if you make CDC into shareholding and make sure that nobody buys external? I think there are people here that can buy percentage of the shares of CDC to bail it out. But where is the institutional framework? Who is ready to do that? So what you are trying to say, The government must change its modus operandi.
So that we don't start importing.
Exactly, because very soon we shall start. And to come back a little bit 1 minute about the issue of the plantations making the town to be very beautiful. A few years back, a friend of mine came from Ghana. I took him for sightseeing. I drove when the country was still very quiet before this crisis. You remember?
I remember very well.
The guy came from Ghana. I took him, and I made sure that we passed around the plantations. We came through Motengene, went round up towards the foot of the mountain. Then on our way back, we went back through Sase, Tole. The man saw banana, and he asked me that I must eat banana. They brought a bunch of a portion of banana. I paid 200 francs. He asked me that, how much is that? I said, 200 francs. He said, for all this banana? I said, yes, that's what we have here. But that's not what I want to say. If we had a good sense of tourism, that guy told me that, man, if you develop a film industry here in this your Limbe, foreigners can even come here and shoot films here. That's what he said.
That's what he said.
And that's true.
Now, key economic activities within these camps, those economic activities are no longer there. Jobs are being lost. Are these not extra pressures brought to bear on the respective communities?
There you go.
With possible high waves in crimes.
Yes, there you go, Leonard, because a while ago I had within my thoughts, my scattered thoughts, and I was saying to myself that we also have our own fair share of the blame.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, within the framework of the CDC, within the communities where CDC is found, we have the inhabitants in those areas also have a fair share of the blame, because you can't be living in a camp where you've grown all your life. Your parents have actually made sure that from the proceeds, from their little salaries, their little earnings that CDC paid them as camp workers, they were able to send you to school. Some of you dropped out of school and you started working as employees in those plantations of CDC. And along the line, you turn to destroy not only the plantations that have fed you, you end up destroying even your parents. And at the end of the day, you have nothing to lean on. The community has that responsibility to restore CDC back to its full sanity. It's not only about the government. The government has its fair share of the blame. We all know that. But as a community, what do we need to do? We cannot keep blaming the government without looking at ourselves. We are the government as well. We should put ourselves before the mirror and say, okay, why? The government is very far off in Yaoundé, for instance. If we destroy our livelihoods, nobody is coming to look at us. Nobody is coming for our rescue, at least not anytime soon. So there is that aspect, that community aspect we need to look into. Our sons, our brothers in these areas who have somehow decided to put an end to CDC activities, thinking that it benefits only the government. Oh no, it's a fatal error, my people. It's a fatal error. It benefits all of us. So you can't stay in the bush, keep crying foul, whereas you have decided to shoot yourself on the foot. So my take on it is the community should take its responsibility while looking at the government.
Okay, communities should take its responsibilities. Let me take a few messages. Leonard, a very sensitive topic indeed. The number in the panel says it all. Barrister Justice Ntoko, glad having you in the panel. It entails how crucial this topic today is to our people. Your insightful contributions as a Victoria boy and adds more value to the topic under discussion. You guys in the panel are just too awesome. Let us all increase this team until it reaches the power that be. Okay, Sobanke is writing again from Douala. Okay, this one says, my Fako people no longer go to Mount Fako as we used to enjoy the trip. I don't know what to tell my children. Greetings to Mbola. You all in the panel. It's Manene writing from Boya. Good evening to you. This one says, good evening to you, Mr. Liu, such an intelligent panel. I wish the government of Cameroon can learn something from them. Writing from Poland. Good evening to you. This one reads, good evening. In the studio, destruction of CDC is one of the many institutions to destroy in West Cameroon to fulfill France's idea. The present regime cannot solve CDC problem. We are praying and God will answer our prayers about CDC. Divine is writing from Mutengene. This one says, I think that we should also look at a possibility of changing the locations of CDC to forest areas in Limbe that are not yet developed. The present location is cut up with township chiefs who want their town to develop and have a good aesthetic look. Okay? Okay, this one. Hello to all. It is really a big shame that Cameroon, which is still a developing country with its backbone being the agricultural sector, is being neglected to say the CDC should be one of the leading corporations, but is instead the least of them all. For a solution, they should pay the personnel, which is the main labor. From there, they should reorganize the agricultural system, and to crown it all, reorganize the personnel, to which is the most important factor. Good evening. I'm Patu from Boya. Most of the chiefs are not greedy and selfish, and that's what will cause their downfall. They do not think about the future of their descendants. Since the government did not succeed in privatizing the CDC, they are helping them to destroy the company. How can land be surrendered in an area that have been exploited? Sasekis. There are vast lands behind the Sase College right up to Boassa village. Why are they not exploiting that area as layout? There are virgin forests from Tiko, Buinga area to Mabeta. May God help us all. Okay. This one says, my name is Enanga Nadine. I am 100% behind the Bakuri land claim community. I may disagree with the land distribution methods, but I think this land claiming will foster the development of our division region. Douala and Yaoundé do not have CDC, but Douala pays the highest tax to Cameroon government. We should know that CDC could be important for the development of our region. Okay. Greetings again once small. My humble regards to my lecturer, Mr. Ikangaki. Tabe, please, panelists, what can be done now that these chiefs use their indigenous people documents like ID cards to make side plans and sell? If Konak happens to check them, issues. Okay, we are left with 20 more minutes. Let us look at the way out. How do we save the CDC?
If we need to save the CDC, I believe the very first person, we need a timely intervention of the government to regularize the CDC land dispute with the indigents. If secondly, again, we might opt for the CDC also to expand to those other divisions and regions. Why not? Not necessarily in the southwest region, but where other productions, agricultural products, can be produced in the name of CDC. Let CDC learn to expand. If at all, why not all over the national territory, so that the land problem with the Bakwe people can easily be resolved? CDC has been involved more with agricultural, agro-industrial, meaning more of these cash crops. CDC can get even into livestock now, and equally think that livestock today, you know, when we talk of poultry farming and pig farming, it's one of the highest markets now supplying the world with fresh meat. If CDC too can get into as a competitor with this particular ground, is going to offer not only the nation of Cameroon, but when you go to poultry, a lot of very few small holdings are what are surviving the Cameroonian market, owing that the CDC has gained an international trust already. If CDC should come into poultry and piggery farming, it will give us a very different image about Cameroon. And if we look at it, the timing, we are not just talking because of the Bakori land dispute. I believe before 2012, 2013, a kilogram of rubber used to cost this year about 3,000 francs at the world market. But now that we are talking, I'm telling you that it has dropped right up to 700 francs, which means that rubber is already into competition with other products coming from other places.
So there is need for diversity.
There's a need for diversification at the level of the CDC. If we need to survive CDC, CDC should come out from this traditional production of agro-industrial products into more modern need. Right off, even if we can get the Northwest and if we do cattle rearing, where we can produce milk and many other meat for foreign export, it will serve. We have one of the highest African markets, Nigeria, just a neighboring town, and they consume a lot of meat in Nigeria. If Cameroon can have CDC to take over such a market, why not even go up to places like Ghana? It may do Cameroon more good than staying close and tight on the land issues. I believe those who are doing cattle raiding in the northwest region are doing it in small holding. If CDC can expand to such areas, it may bring a more bigger input than what we are thinking here. There is a need for CDC to go ahead, and a lot of it maybe to survive not only Cameroon, why not?
Yeah, but the workers need to survive before that.
Yeah, that is what we're saying. The fact that you have diversified your production will mean equally.
No, but how do you get to diversifying?
No, the moment what we're saying is that
now how do we save? How?
Now, that's why I said the time intervention is the bail from the government, which is undeniable. The government need to bail out CDC. If we are giving 39 billion and 79 billion to Cameco, I believe bringing in 79 billion for CDC is going to do Cameroonians more good. And certain jobs will obviously be maintained. Okay.
Good evening to you, dear panelists. I wish to say that if the people don't wake up now, it may be too late for them. Let us stop talking and go into action now. Apostle Stephen is writing from Malabo. Good evening to you, Apostle. And for Ferdinand says, bravo, my good friend Billy Bob, for hitting the nail on the head. Okay. This one says, good evening to you all in the studio. I think the elites have failed us because they work in collaboration with the regime. These lands are then sold to the case so that they can finally assimilate us. Zantu is writing from Dubai. Good evening to you, Zantu. Of what use is land surrender to villagers who end up paying exorbitant amounts to chiefs to obtain plots? Land surrender is simply enriching government officials and chiefs. It's of no use. Mulam Mbela Neville Ngumba, writing from Boya. How do we save the CDC now?
Well, to save CDC is to give somebody who is willing to. It's like ABC. CDC needs money and measures, because we talk about CDC. Workers have been going. Some of us who have brothers and sisters who work with CDC, we know that they have not been paid for. CDC pays only those who are productive, the sectors that are productive. And you know that of the how many estates that they have, just I think 10% of those estates are productive, are active now, and they don't pay estates that are not productive, and these people are all home struggling. So which means CDC, if the government should bail out CDC with some chunk of money like 100 billion, like I said earlier, is going to help them, because Sonara is not functioning fully. You all know, but no Sonara's workers has cried that they never pay my salary. They will pay their salary, like the minister went there and said, l'État ferait tout pour que vous êtes pris au petit soin. That was it, that the government will do everything to see that you people are comfortable. But I didn't see a minister come to CDC. They have not cut any Sonara's workers' hand, neck, feet, nothing. Nobody has cut anything. But yet the ministers have not been, when Sonara got burnt, ministers trooping and out of Sonara. It is clear they have taken their side. That here is oil, here is agronomy, and we're going to give a bullshit about it. That if the CDC wants to fall, CDC should fall. So to bail out CDC is just money. And then they should put a moratorium on this land grabbing or what. There should be a suspension, even not even a moratorium. They should suspend it for now and maybe decide on what to do, because when we talk about elites, like someone said, I don't think we have the Fako people have elites in Yaoundé or whatsoever. They have some grown-ups, some aged people who happen to find themselves in some places. We don't have elites, because who's an elite? I'll tell you something. Something happened a few days ago. I told you, Mr. Leonard, the Prime Minister signed 2 decrees in 1 week because of the income. What happened in income? The government have mapped out a sector in the Cam division, and in I think what Valais in Tem. The government have mapped out a section that is Réserve Nationale, which means the land used to belong to the villagers, and the government wants to seize it. The elites stood up and said no. They wrote to the presidency, they wrote to the prime minister, and another decree came which was stating that on the high instructions, you read it, on the high instructions of the head of state, the prime minister has cancelled that reserve that was given to the state back to the community. It is ABC if people want to do it. What is happening in Fako? The Fako man doesn't want, the Fako man, yes, we wanted land, but the lands are not for us. They cannot give 30 hectares of land to a community, and the Bakuipo are, you and I know that the Bakurans are a minority tribe, which means 30 hectares of land to a village
everybody will be more than comfortable.
Absolutely.
Because that's where the problem started.
Yes.
10,000 land to Moya people. Moya is a cosmopolitan of about 20,000 people, but Bakuras are, if there are many, there should be 1,000, which means 19,000 are strangers. Yeah. So I think the government needs to put all of these things in place. CDC, you talk about CDC extending, diversifying. We have not even been able to manage what we have now. We want to diversify. We talk about, okay, for example, that's what they tricked us in thinking that the tea was a problem.
Yes.
But from an inside, we realized that it was a scam because the tea that CDC had in stock, compared to the money that Brobons or what the Dampulo and the rest did, was a scam because just the tea that was in their warehouse,
2.5 billion.
Yes, could pay. And there were some in the Southwest sinners who wanted to pay that money, but they were blocked because there was a scheme and a scam from some people in Yaoundé, and that's how they brought the South African consortium like to stand with complicity. And after that, you and I know that Bourbons was nowhere to be found again, and now we had what Ndawara tea estate that came in, and then you know that they ended in court with Nibangu and what happened. Okay. That was a scam.
Okay. Just 1 minute. I think it's high time CDC is discussed in the Prime Minister's interministerial discussions.
Okay.
The life of CDC should be discussed by all the ministers, how to bring back the cooperation. Now, I remember about 3-4 months ago, indigents went into Sokapau to protect the ceding of land to one individual. Just 1 day thereafter, after the indigents went into Sokapau, the ceding of that land was cancelled by the Prime Minister. What is happening to CDC? Everybody is crying that the land grabbing in Fako is causing hell.
Stop it.
Stop it. Stop this land grabbing. Allow CDC alone. Let the corporation function. Let the 22,000 workers benefit from the efforts they do on a daily basis. To bring back the corporation needs a bailout. A bailout that will be sufficient enough to turn things around, to make life back. Life comes back into Fako. CDC is a life wire of Fako. Is a life wire of Limbe. I was born in Victoria. But at the end of every month, we used to hear
Tico also.
Yes. We used to hear Payday was a special day in Victoria.
Payday.
People were moving all around. Akilupi. You see this work on Akilupi.
30,000 francs.
For his 30,000 francs, he was very proud about it. And he used the 30,000 francs to sponsor children from the primary level to the university.
These are the people destroying cities.
And the people who have now come benefited from that.
Yes, that's what I said. That's what I said.
Instead of protecting the hegemony, they want to destroy it. They're destroying it for what? What's going to replace CDC? There's nothing that's going to replace CDC. I don't see any other economic value of anything in Fako to replace CDC. If we bring back the port in Limbe, then CDC will be far better than what it is today. Because CDC will be the main exporter of products out of the country. And that's going to benefit just Limbe. The amount of money that will come into Limbe, will pump into Limbe, will have a multiplier effect. I think it's high time, apart from bailing out CDC, let the ports in Limbe should be reopened, should be reactivated, so that Fako should become as buoyant as it used to be when we were children. In Limbe, in those days, I say those days, not that I'm too old, that I'm not too young.
History is history.
I'm not too young. We used to have shops in Limbe,
Britannia,
owned by foreigners. The shops, things used to come from out of the country. And you go there and you're fascinated just seeing how people buy things.
Men's textile.
I remember Press Book in those days had a self-serving machine. We used to go there and drop 50 francs to pick out a table tennis ball. We don't have any shop in Limbe. We don't have a mall. Not to talk about that. Why? It's because the money that is supposed to be pumped into the economy, into Limbe and Fako division, is elsewhere. Why is it going elsewhere? Our chiefs and administrators are cutting down our trees.
Okay,
They are taking away the economy.
The head of state assured the CDC years back for regularly salary, but that is not the case. Is there persons, is there a cabal in Yaoundé that is blocking whatever efforts that the government has as far as saving the CDC is concerned? Are there some people that are blocking something?
Yes, I think there are some people. But before I go to analyze that in a few minutes, let me say that all what my co-panelists have said is true about how to solve CDC's problem. I'm only going to throw some light on. But before I do that, let me say that nothing justifies this cacophony called land surrender.
Okay.
There's nothing whatsoever that justifies it. Fako people did not put pressure on government to distribute land to them. Know it, and I mean what I'm saying. It was an approach to dilute the struggle of the BLCC for restoration of land rights after Banjo. It's unilateral policy of the government of Cameroon. So any fallout from this policy, Cameroon government must take responsibility. That said, it is also the responsibility of government to bail out the state. Keynesian economics tells us that when all other aspects of economic collapse, the government must step in. That's the role of the state in managing the economy. Even in capitalist states like America, Obama did it to rescue the Detroit and Michigan car district. So there's nothing new about that. I stand firmly behind Dr. Ako that it is the duty of Cameroon government to bail out CDC. Having said that again, people who don't know Sodokoton, I go to the north, I know Sodokoton. They should imagine if Sodokoton closes, what will happen to the north? That's the same thing that will happen here. That's true. And yet, nobody has tempered. Everybody protects Sodokoton. Yeah, I want us to draw parallel about these things. If there's no Sodokoton in the north, there is no. If there's no Sodokoton in the north, there is no north. I can tell you this.
Yeah, of course, some of us have stayed. Some of us.
And therefore, we should see it that if there is no CDC,
stayed in the north, so I know.
We forget about this part of Cameroon and even Cameroon itself, because CDC remains the buffer that helps the state. He has analyzed all. I don't want to go into that. Now, coming to the issue of people's salaries. If the head of state made such a statement, I might not have followed it, but it's true, it's real, then some people are trying to thwart the instructions of the head of state. There must be some people. If there are no people, why is the machine not working to pay CDC people? We should not forget, the many years that CDC was making excesses, and nobody complained that the government was receiving too much money. So now that the cow is sick, does it not deserve treatment, vaccination, life support, ventilators to make it respire properly? The ball is in the doorstep of the government.
Okay, Mbola Charles, what should be done to save the CDC?
I think in 2018 there was a JIC Board of Directors meeting of the Cameroon Development Corporation, and they were looking at how to bail out the CDC, because by then, by 2018, the damages were already there. First of all, by the socio-political crisis, and then now the unscrupulous ceding of land to people who call themselves chiefs and who are being sponsored by non-indigents. I think there is a bailout plan already. It's the implementation phase is what we really want to see happen, because I learned there is a total sum of about 70 billion. Yeah. It may not be enough, but it's something to kickstart a process. We need to see the sincerity of, first of all, the management of CDC. We want to see the sincerity of the employees in the respective communities where we find CDC plantations and the housing facilities. We need to see the sincerity of these people. If not, everything, every resources, every idea that we brought in will be wasted. That's the reality. So the money is there. The state has promised, and I believe they've started disbursing this money. But we need at our own levels to understand that it takes a chain of action for things to be realized. And I am calling on my fellow Fako people, where we have this land, please don't apply for CDC land anymore, because you are not doing justice to the community. You are not using it for the purpose for which it was ceded to you. If not, let CDC continue doing its work as before. like our forefathers gave to us. If not, we have ourselves to blame in no distant time.
Okay, I'll take some messages before we call it a day out here. Good evening. Interesting discussions about the CDC. The CDC issue is an Anglophone problem. If we keep discussing it like an entity, the pressure will not be sufficient to move the government. Many Anglophone companies have gone like this. The head of state is aware. The so-called elites now to the head of state, hence they should move to the head of state, hence nothing will happen. More for Emmanuel, writing from Sandpit in Boya. CDC was privatized because their business deal with Del Monte had issues where private farmers around Lumpinja and Jumbi, right up to Compina, signed contracts of banana supply at cheaper prices. So Del Monte started working with them and made CDC not to sell or to have money to pay its workers. Okay, that is. This one says, to save the CDC, we should stand up and protest for their rights. Thanks for your voices. Mula Inongi is writing, okay. This one says, stop trying to call on the government to act positively for the CDC. The government is the one destroying, so you cannot be calling on it to stop the destruction. Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Dr. Carl, writing from Yaoundé. Wow, great panelists today and beautiful insights on the topic. Please, Mr. Liu, let your panelists propose solutions how to rescue CDC, and these proposals they documented and forwarded to the Prime Minister's office for immediate actions. Okay, I'm sure that is going to be done. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. I enjoy your program. More grace to your able. CDC is not for the Anglophones only, but to all Cameroonians. So the government should take the bull by the horns to revive for the good of all Cameroonians. Daniel is writing from Boya. Okay, good evening to you, Daniel, the man of God. This other. Good evening to you in the studio and to Dr. Aku. My own point of view concerns the chiefs. Our chiefs has failed us woefully because the government has flattered them with money and position. Our chiefs should stand up and refuse the government from selling our lands and properties. By Jinga Babel Webnu, Jesus is coming soon. Repent, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all reviving CDC means part of reconstruction, and that could be possible given the crisis. It must start with a ceasefire. I'm Clovis, writing from Mutengene. Good evening. You all know that the government deliberately did all that to reduce Anglophones to nothing. CDC and FACO can not be buoyant again in this. Okay, Castro is writing from Douala here. Good evening to you in the studio. I like your program. CDC is very important not only to the Southwesterners but to all Cameroonians because it is the second employer after the state. It contributes greatly to the GDP of the country and also to the industrial development since it provides raw materials, especially to the food processing industries. The chiefs who are selling the CDC land should stop because it is not for the interest of the indigenous people but their personal interest. Mr. Mutika, writing from Kekem. Okay, good evening to you. Greetings to you, Mr. Liu, and my regards to all the speakers, especially to my brother from Muya. I'm a Benye living in Muya. Please kindly give the name of the brave speakers from Muya. Hi, his name is Billy Bob Ndive Lifungu. Okay. Greetings to all the panel in the studio. I'm very happy with the topic being discussed. Greetings to Barrister Iban Toko. I am Mark Fish, writing from my 4 in Limbe. Okay, good evening to you. Not only the government should have the responsibility to raise back CDC, we the youths and communities should join forces in raising the CDC back. Princely is writing from Boya. Good evening to all in the panelists, okay, especially to Barrister Toko for throwing more lights to the CDC problem at hand. Even though it's falling on deaf ears, even though it's Sakwe Muki writing from Tiku. Messages are just so. I want to read this one from Larry Essong. Says, good evening, Leo and your panel. There is no gainsaying that the CDC land surrender business is a calculated scheme to enrich Francophone administrators sent to FACO. To achieve this, they quickly carve out a village of 5 houses and make a chief out of it. Before they handpick the chief is accepted by the administrator, he must accept to surrender 3/4 of the acquired land to the administrator who approves the file. The remaining portion is quickly sold out by the alien chief. It is no secret that it is no secret that this impunity. It is no secret that this impunity by successive administrators in FACO is very known by government, yet no action has been taken. Okay, I can easily conclude by saying the hand of government is behind the destruction of the CDC. Okay, we have to end here. Unfortunately, we can't read all the messages. We want to say thank you to you, Billy Bob, for... You want to add something?
Yeah.
No, very briefly, please.
Yeah, very briefly.
Out of time.
Yes, I'm just saying that I'm calling on, in Cameroon that we are everything they call on one person. And I'm calling on this superhuman being who is Mr. Paul Biya to save CDC from dying, to save the FACO man from languishing. He has the pen, the voice, anything he says is law. He should do that and act right now before the carnage continues or something evil happens in FACO division and to CDC. CDC is our national heritage, and we should do everything possible to see that it doesn't fall.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
I want to say that the independence of the judiciary is another force.
Okay.
If the judges are independent, they will be able to render proper judgment, and people will go home happily. Investment will come back into our area, because foreign investment, they look at the judiciary first, to be sure that if I invest in this jurisdiction, I'm sure I'm going to reap back. Just like CDC. If CDC is protected by the laws, what is happening today will not happen. So I think the independence of the judiciary, let the judges be independent, allow them to do their work. It should no longer be the president being the head of the judiciary.
Okay.
The head of the judicial council.
Okay. We want to say thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
And to you too.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. We equally want to say thank you to you, Charles Mbola, for coming all the way from Boya.
Thank you, Leonard. It's always a pleasure. We've been working on various platforms, and first time on being on my Prime TV, I think it's a place worth coming back to.
Okay. We equally want to say thank you to you, Dr. Ako.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine, and as I said, we are there to protect Cameroon, and why not the generations to come? So we join forces wherever those forces are needed to make Cameroon a better place.
We want to thank the production team and to you all who took time off to follow the program. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.